made by the federal government of Ethiopia. Habtamu Ashagri has more.
Sustained access from both Komolcha and Samara to Mekele, and from Gondar to Shire.
In its 8,812 meeting, the UN Security Council had discussion about the peace and security concern of Africa. Speaking on the occasion, Ethiopian permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Taye Atqaselase, expressed efforts to the Ethiopian government to restore peace and stability in the state of Tigray.
When the government of Ethiopia took bold measures and political decisions to meet the needs and well-being of its people affected by the law enforcement operation in Tigray. This measure should have encouraged our friends to give support and de-escalate the unhelpful pressure. Equally, we wish to express our appreciation to all of you for recognizing our resolve for peace behind this difficult initiative we have taken.
According to Taye, the unilateral ceasefire agreement made by the federal government is critical to deliver decisive humanitarian assistance in the region. The government of Ethiopia's decision is also vital to bring constructive outlook of the UN security about humanitarian assistance in the state of Tigray.
On 28 June 2021, the government of Ethiopia decided to cease the active military engagement of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces in the Tigray region. This decision for humanitarian ceasefire was reached after a concerted deliberation with various stakeholders and partners.
Taye further noted the refutation of the unilateral ceasefire by the responsible behavior of the TPLF gangs, recalling the government's tolerance to alleviate humanitarian crisis in the state.
We hope that this magnanimous and far-sighted decision will not be wasted by the irresponsible conduct of the TPLF group, which the government of Ethiopia opted to tolerate for the sake of the people of Tigray and to alleviate the humanitarian situation in the region. The decision to cease military operation is hoped to create a conducive environment for humanitarian operation in Tigray.
The ongoing devilish and illogical conduct of TPLF is taking the people into deep-rooted and vicious humanitarian crisis in the region, Taye added. The federal government of Ethiopia has decided the unilateral ceasefire agreement for safeguarding of its own people, unity, solidarity and territorial integrity of the country.
The TPLF group that were pursuing continued its belligerence to protect few individuals. In furtherance of its agenda, it began conscripting young and elderly civilians, women and men, to fight highly trained and armed men of their country. This exposed the people in Tigray for the military confrontation that are not prepared for.
The government of Ethiopia has created space to deliver for unfettered humanitarian access as well as to provide necessary agricultural inputs in the state of Tigray, Taye remarked. Taye urges the UN Security Council to understand the external challenges that Ethiopia is facing to make the nation out of its national priorities.
The external security threats against us through no fault or provocation on our part are complicating our internal political dynamics and distract us from key national priorities. I wish to implore this Council to act with full awareness of this external challenge Ethiopia is facing.
According to Taye, the Ethiopian government has adopted a roadmap for inclusive dialogue to restore peace and stability in the region.
In a related story, Kenya's permanent representative to the UN Security Council called on the Council to give space for Africans to resolve their problems by themselves. He also reiterated that the international community has to appreciate Ethiopian government's decision for the unilateral ceasefire and unfettered humanitarian access in Tigray. Goshu Melliso has this full account.
Aux représentants du Kenya.
The ambassadors of the United States, France, China, Russia, India, Kenya, Norway, Taiwan and Ireland to the Security Council expressed their views on the recent situation in Tigray. Kenya's permanent representative to the Council said the Security Council should give space for African issues to get resolved by Africans.
We reiterate once again that the Council should always listen to Africa when it comes to African issues. the Council should also allow the continent the space to resolve its challenges with the support of the international community. We do not make this assertion because we are infallible. Rather, it is because Africa today has a realizable vision of itself growing into a peaceful, united, independent, and prosperous community of nations.
He also reiterated the international community has to appreciate Ethiopian government's decision for the unilateral ceasefire and unfettered humanitarian access in Tigray.
We welcome the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire by the government of Ethiopia and stress that this Council and the international community should appreciate this decision by the government as an opportunity that must be capitalized on.
Martin Kiamni expressed his concern about the recent destruction bridge over the Tekeze River as opposed to the ceasefire, and that will complicate the humanitarian delivery effort.
We are particularly concerned about the potential implications of the recent destruction of the bridge over the Tekeze River, connecting Shire and Gonda. It is indicative of a callous attitude to the needs of civilians in crisis, and that there are parties not observing a ceasefire. We condemn the deliberate destruction of civilian objects that are vital to the delivery of humanitarian aid.
Saying the ceasefire experience had not been seen in Africa's peace and security architecture, he noted silencing the gun would allow Tigray's farmers and traders to recover their livelihood and bringing about peaceful coexistence in the country.
This silencing of the guns serves our continental will and would allow Tigray's farmers and traders to return to their farms and shops so that they may recover their livelihoods and reduce their dependency on the outstretched hand of the humanitarians. Because we know from experience that doing so will allow the deployment of the tools available in Africa's peace and security architecture to help Ethiopia be at peace with itself.
The permanent representative to the Council also lauded the recent election conducted peacefully despite some logistical and operational challenges.
We support the democratic aspirations of the Ethiopian people. As such, we have argued that the international community and the Security Council give the country space to undertake its most recent elections. We have been gratified by the interim reports, especially that of the African Union Election Observer Mission, asserting that, and I quote, despite some operational, logistical, security, political, and COVID-19 related challenges, overall, the pre-election and election day processes were conducted in an orderly, peaceful, and credible manner. Close of quote. We hope that the election becomes a foundation of a robust national conversation on peace, cohesion, development, and the celebration of diversity and pluralism.
The permanent representative further urged the international humanitarian community to speed up their efforts.
Meanwhile, member states of the UN Security Council commended efforts made by the Ethiopian government to restore peace and stability. Chinese representatives said Ethiopia is the anchor nation in restoring peace and stability in the Horn of Africa, citing his country's close attention towards the major development stories in the state of Tigray. Haptam Washagri has the detail.
China, India and Russian Federation are some of the member states of the UN Security Council standing by the side of Ethiopia during this tough time. These three nations have welcomed Ethiopia's unilateral ceasefire agreement and its humanitarian assistance in the state of Tigray. China expressed its readiness to support EU-led constructive negotiation role in the continent in this regard.
Ethiopia is an anchor of stability in the Horn of Africa, vital to regional peace and security. A peaceful and stable Ethiopia is the common wish of all Ethiopians, and other African countries and the international community at large would want nothing less. China has been closely following with concern the situation in the Tigray region. The government of Ethiopia has recently announced a unilateral ceasefire in the state of Tigray to restore normalcy in farming and humanitarian operations in the region, which China welcomes. We look forward to a comprehensive ceasefire in Tigray and support the parties concerned to resolve their differences through political dialogue, so that all people in Ethiopia including those in the state of Tigray, can enjoy peace and stability on their way towards development and prosperity. China supports the AU's continued constructive role and welcomes the assistance extended to Ethiopia by AU Commission Chairperson Faki.
The Indian representative for his part said the unilateral ceasefire agreement of Ethiopia is welcoming development to provide critical humanitarian assistance in the region. India recognizes the encouraging humanitarian assistance that has been provided by the Ethiopian government to alleviate humanitarian crisis.
The people of Tigray region in Ethiopia have suffered during the 8-month-long fighting. The announcement of a humanitarian ceasefire in the Tigray region is therefore a welcome development. We commend the government of Ethiopia for taking this decision and welcome the measures it has taken to address the humanitarian situation. This positive step should help ease the tensions and sufferings of the people. We hope that today's meeting will help in de-escalating the situation on the ground and bring about reconciliation and peace in the region. We also believe that the presence of external armed actors in the Tigray region militate against return to peace, and we call for an end to this. It is important that all stakeholders respect the ceasefire, allow humanitarian aid to reach all those in need, and allow for regular farming activities to take place.
The unilateral ceasefire decision made by the federal government of Ethiopia and its humanitarian assistance role is the right decision, said the Russian Federation representative. According to the Russian Federation representative, the Ethiopian government's effort to rehabilitate infrastructure in the state of Tigray is remarkable.
We're closely following the development of the complex situation, and we believe that the Ethiopian federal government's unilateral decision on the 28th of June for immediate cessation of facilities in Tigray is a step in the right direction. We hope that all warring parties will demonstrate the necessary political will, which would enable to put an end to this bloodshed and improve the humanitarian situation and gradually bring about socio-economic stabilization.
During the UN Security Council ordinary session, the international community further cooperation is critical to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in the state of Tigray.
fertile land.
Wow.
So green is fertile. Green.
All right.
የምናድበለብለው ቅርጽ እንዲይዝልን ነው። ይኸውላችሁ እንደዚህ ሳደርገው ይቀልጣል። በማንኪያ የሚበላ በማንኪያ ይበላል፣ በእጅ የሚበላ ይታብረመናው በስማ ሽታታ አሽቃሩ በስማ ጌታ
Jason's gonna go in. Jason's going in hard. I love that. You see, all the guys are aggressive. They go
yeast and lemon water, but it really smells good. It smells like lemony fresh. Oh yeah, the aroma of that berberry, those spices.
Wow. And then wear a little.
Hey, ተካና ይባላል። ከወተት ከቡላ ከአይብ እና የተለያዩ ቅመማ ቅመሞች ተጨምሮ የሚሰራ
አለባችሁ። አዎ ሴክሲ እንዴት ይጣፍጣል።
Welcome back. Director of East African Policy Research Institute, Birhanu Lengiso, said the unilateral ceasefire which the government has recently declared in Tigray region is appropriate. In an exclusive interview with ETV English, the scholar also condemned in the strongest of terms the recent call of the TPLF terrorist group to escalate violence in the Horn of Africa. Kazahun Chane reports.
The East African Policy Research Institute Director Birhanu Lengiso told ETV English that the request of the interim administration of Tigray State to the federal government to make a unilateral ceasefire decision is enthusiastic and will play a pivotal role to restore peace and security in the region, while on the contrary he also blamed the propaganda of the TPLF terrorist group, who has rejected the Ethiopian government's unilateral ceasefire and vote to continue the war.
TPLF has been doing this for the last half a century. They actually marched about 200,000 famine victims to Sudan in 1984 to get attention from the international community and to receive food aid directly. The aid that they have used to purchase weaponaries. But what happened to the 200 famine victims that marched to Sudan is the question without answer to date. So they are very skilled in that business. They are very experienced in that business. And they are trying to repeat that same thing again. If, for example, they cut roads, bridges, the international food workers, because they don't know the area, they don't know how to reach the civilians, then at that point TPLF will bring itself in as an assistant to the aid workers, and they will use all the money to purchase weapons again. So it is up to us, and mainly up to the people in Tigray to make this clear to the international community so that they will get what they need.
Birhanu vividly indicates that TPLF has no desire for peace in Tigray and the country at large, even when they were in power for the last 27 years, and in various attempts to spark a regional war in the Horn of Africa on their day-to-day activities.
I mean, I don't believe TPLF has worked for peace in the region in the first place, but at least at this time when people in Tigray, people they claim they have been struggling for, has been in this very dire situation, they should have been the one who agreed to this ceasefire call from the international community, from the interim Tigray administration, and finally the decision of the federal government. But as you mentioned, the remnants of TPLF rather disagree to ceasefire. But there is also another version of this story, that the international community has been pressuring the federal government to ceasefire, thinking that it is the federal government who is pushing this conflict. But now, as you said, the spokesperson of the terrorist organization came out and said we are not.
He further commented that the responsible body for administering the region is yet the interim administration because Tigray is part of the nation, the Ethiopian and the federal government is still under operation.
Ceasefire is not about changing administration. It's not about losing the region. It's not about losing the city. Some people think ceasefire means giving Tigray to some force, I don't know which. No, that is not true. Tigray is part of Ethiopia. The federal government is, in effect, controlling the Tigray region as well. And the interim administration that is given recognition by the federal government and House of Federation is still in operation for me. What has changed is the federal government or the National Defense Force is not effectively in conflict with TPLF.
It was noted that in the early morning of November 4, 2020, the TPLF junta attacked the northern command of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces stationed in the Tigray region. They made happen indescribable human suffering by demonstrating outrageous cruelty and unmatched disloyalty.
Ethiopian Social Democratic Party chairperson Beyene Petros called on the international community to consider all the facts on the ground in Tigray instead of being swayed by propaganda fabricated locally and in the diaspora. In an exclusive interview with ENA, the party chairperson said the accusations of the international community are unfounded and not based on facts. The TPLF rogue, which is the cause of all the problems in the region, has imposed itself on the people of Tigray by force, he added. Regarding the withdrawal of the Ethiopian National Defense Force from the region, Professor Beyene noted that no government can stay in a hostile area where the population sides with an adversary group that comprises criminals. Professor Beyene further explained that this is a very intelligent decision for the government to withdraw and see how the population and elite of Tigray, both in the diaspora and local, react to this move. The opposition leader blamed the international community, saying that they wouldn't like to talk about this, but they're trying to accuse the government with groundless information and advised them to be realistic.
The Nile's main source, the Blue Nile, starts in Ethiopia, at Lake Tana. The river flows towards Sudan and joins the river's other tributary at Sudan's capital, Khartoum, before heading downstream to Egypt. GERD is being built here, on the border with Sudan, near the Blue Nile source. The dam will catch water in its massive reservoir, whose surface area is larger than that of Greater London.
French UN Ambassador Nicolas de Rivière said yesterday that the dispute between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt over a giant dam built in Ethiopia will be solved only through discussion, and the Council can't do anything other than bringing the three countries to the table. The United Nations Security Council will likely meet next week to discuss a dispute between Sudan, Ethiopia and Egypt over a giant dam built by Ethiopia on the Blue Nile, French UN Ambassador Nicolas de Rivière said. Arab states last month called on the 15-member council to meet to discuss the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, and Ethiopia plans to fill the dam for a second time this rainy season. According to EPA, Ethiopia is not keen on Security Council involvement and instead asked the body to refer the issue to the African Union. Ethiopia previously rejected calls from Egypt and Sudan to involve mediators outside the African Union. And finally, in business, Ethiopia Cup of Excellence has today presented 5 presidential award-winning coffees in an event held in Addis Ababa. High-level government officials, members of the diplomatic community, winning farmers, and the coffee community in the country tested the 5 presidential award-winning coffees and wished winners success in the auction. More than 180 global buyers from 33 countries are looking forward to bidding on the 30 Cup of Excellence winning coffees on July 7th, 2021. A quick reminder of the day's headlines. Ambassador Taye Atqaselase expresses government's commitment to restore peace and stability. And Kenyan ambassador to the UN called on the United Nations Security Council to give space for African issues. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for watching. Have a good night.